Zoran Kusovac is a geopolitical and security analyst, a war correspondent, a producer, somebody I've worked with over the decades, and you can't find anybody who's sort of more experienced and I wouldn't say war weary, but war. Zoran, what would we say? Just you've been everywhere and you've seen it all, and you're very good at kind of looking at today's situations and being able to reflect them into yesterday's and what could possibly go wrong.
Thanks for singing my praises, Dana. I would settle for war savvy. I think that explains
Let's
it.
let's go with that. Look, as I was waiting for you to come online, I was watching the Qatari foreign minister speak about this deal to release the hostages in Israel. And it seems like there are so many unanswered questions, but essentially starting at 4 p.m. on Friday, 13 hostages are going to be released, but the truce, the ceasefire, if we can call it that, or the cessation in hostilities is a better way of saying it, is supposed to start at 7 o'clock in the morning. Aid trucks are supposed to start moving into Gaza, and then the Red Cross will facilitate the first batch of hostages to be transported over the Gaza border into Israeli hands the first day, and this is supposed to go on for 4 days while the Israelis are supposed to stop everything in the sky, turn the drones off, ground their aircraft, and there's supposed to be no shooting during any of that time. So let me go back to the first question that I said to you, and that is, what could possibly go wrong?
Anything could possibly go wrong. These things are very, very sensitive because they depend on people on the ground. The big bosses, they make the big deals, and they say, okay, we are going to stop fighting and we are going to exchange the captives. And that sounds very good. And even if the intention indeed is sincere, as we hope it is, it still has to be translated on the ground into some very sticky things, like what route are they going to use? Commanders on the ground, first of all, have to meet. And that is not always easy. Imagine, they've been fighting each other now in the last Gaza offensive for almost a month on the ground. They wanted to kill each other. They wanted to kill as many of their opposite side soldiers and officers. And now somebody had to pick up a radio. They actually talk to each other on the radio. In all wars, the enemies taunt each other. When there is a quiet moment, they call each other names and they threaten each other. But they know where they are. They use the same channels on walkie-talkies. So somebody on one side or another picked up a radio anytime from Wednesday until today, probably already on Wednesday, saying, my commander wants to talk to your commander. And then the two of them start talking and say, hey, you and I have to find out a safe route for these guys. We have to work out who and how is going to clear the rubble, who is going to guarantee that there are no landmines, which is going to be our changeover point. And this is very important. You are responsible up to this stone, and I'm responsible from that stone onto my side.
Yeah, two sides that still want to kill each other, just haven't been bent on it in the past. I mean, they hate one another and they want to kill one another. So who do you think, as Israelis are still in place in Gaza, in their tanks, in buildings, on their overwatch positions? Hamas is still in tunnels. They are still everywhere, spread around, able to hit and run. Who do you think, with all these different factions in Gaza, might want to torpedo a deal, torpedo the truce?
We don't need to go that far. We can ask one even simpler question. Are we 100% certain that both sides on every point on the battlefield exercise full and complete control 24/7? It's enough for one soldier to be angry, to be drunk, to be frustrated, and to say, who are they to tell me not to fight when I lost my this person or that person? And it's enough for someone to start shooting to trigger a domino effect. So there are many dangers. One thing that I don't like, and I have to mention it immediately, is that the initial exchange has been set for 4 p.m. Now, the window of light is very short. 4 p.m. in Gaza, it's already, the sun is already going down, and it's almost dark. Unless it happens very fast and it's without any delay and it's very efficient, they're going to run into dark hours. And it's, as you know, it's never a good idea to conduct any business on the battlefield after the sun sets. So this worries me very much.
Can I ask you, there are a lot of people sitting back applauding this because they just want the bloodshed to end. The former Mossad chief Ephraim Halevi did an interview in Israel, and he said that, quote, "I think this deal is the first stage. If this process of exchange of prisoners is carried forward to the end, it will be much more difficult to renew the military campaign until the collapse of Hamas." So that's the former head of Mossad saying we may not see a resumption of hostilities at all if, and you and I both agree there's a huge if here, if the hostage release is successful and continues.
Absolutely. He is definitely somebody who knows all things that are involved, who has experience, who has battlefield experience, who has experience in determining what the enemy thinks. So, yes, this is one of the things that is quite a logical development. People will say, not just people on the ground, but it starts from them, the Palestinians, and the Israelis will say, wait a second, if we had 4 days without any fighting, without people getting killed, without anything getting destroyed, without buildings in Gaza being destroyed and covering people under rubble, without rockets being fired at Israel and killing people in their homes, why can't we have 40 days or 400 days?
And the political expressions or the political pressures on will be extreme on Netanyahu, right? Because, okay, 50 people released, it's a huge number of hostages out, but there are still potentially almost 200 others that will still be held. And the pressure on the Israeli government, which at first seemed to draw a horizontal bar between removing Hamas and the war and also releasing the hostages, they've been under a lot of pressure to say hostages being released are the #1 priority now.
Well, most people in Israel asked for that from the very beginning, but of course it just fell on deaf ears because Netanyahu and his hawks, they were very warlike and they kept saying we're going to destroy Hamas. Of course, people who really know something about wars, Israelis who know about wars, and they do, they must have told Netanyahu from the very beginning, it's not that easy to destroy Hamas. You can kill many people, hoping that some of them will be Hamas, but singling out Hamas and destroying Hamas is not going to be easy militarily. By now, many people realize that. So, in a way, stopping the fighting, getting some kind of political securities after they got all the hostages out, would be an honorable way out for everybody. But that would cost Netanyahu his political skin. I don't think he can survive this in any way. His popularity, or actually his level of tolerance for his politics, went up and down like a yo-yo. It was absolutely rock bottom. And then when the deal was announced, he immediately tried to spin doctorate into I will free some hostages. Yes, that helped him a little, but I don't think it can help him in the long term. I think he's doomed one way or another. So a lot of strategic decision making around the Israeli position in Gaza will be determined by Netanyahu's tactical political game of survival.
Do you want to make a prediction? I'll make a prediction. I would tell you, after covering Hamas since the 1990s, this truce will not hold. They will want to, I think, torpedo any cessation of hostilities at a certain point. I don't know what that point will be. Once they get a certain amount of aid into Gaza, they will not release some men of military age and some of the hostages very easily. That can go on for months. Israel will begin to pull the trigger again, depending on how many hostages are released and how quickly. But how does this conflict end? Does it end with the Israeli army staying in Gaza? Or do you think that behind the scenes there is anything in the works in terms of an international effort to try to replace Hamas or bring in the regular Palestinian Authority, or somehow to set Gaza back on some the rails of self-rule that in some form that the Israelis can live with? Sorry, I know there's a lot in that question, but do you see an end point here?
No, I don't see an end point. I don't see a logical end point, and I don't think that Israel sees an end point, which is even more important, because from the moment all hostages are released, there is no win situation for Israel, whatever it does. If it stays in Gaza, it's bad. If it tries to occupy the whole of Gaza, it's bad, because that means pressure on the inhabitants, who will then have to press on Egypt to get into Egypt, and Egypt doesn't want them. No country wants them.
And pressure on Israeli soldiers, who will keep dying in there, by the way, too, because they cannot just. That's why they left, Zoran, right? I mean,
exactly, and
they will keep getting drive-by shootings at night. They will keep getting picked off. There will continue to be armed conflict in there. Israel may think staying is the lesser of a number of evils, but I don't think Israel wants to stay on the ground there, and the Israeli public won't accept soldiers coming home dead, every week, more and more and more.
The only thing I beg to disagree is when you say Israel will not accept that. Israel is never going to be unified on this. The time when Israel was a responsible society that behaved like we don't challenge our government while we're at war has definitely passed. So from now on, there will be two Israels. There will be the war hawks. There will be the doves in Israel. There will be the realists and those who engage in wishful thinking, who will say, well, it's worth staying in Gaza, because even if our soldiers will be killed, our civilians will not be killed. And Israel is going to have a very, very tough internal debate as to what it wants and what it can do in and around Gaza. So this is not going to be resolved very easily and very quickly.
Yeah. I mean, take months and months, and maybe a couple of years, although a lot of people would say that's looking way too far in the distance. Zoran Kusovac, thank you so much, my friend. It's good to hear you. Good to see you.
Just to add, Dana, somebody we know very well, U.S. General David Petraeus, a former military commander and head of CIA, said exactly that. This war is not going to be finished in weeks. It's going to take at least months.
Yeah, that from a guy who predicted Afghanistan would be a 20-year insurgency, and he was pretty close to that.
Yeah,
I don't think he predicted the end of that very well, but he predicted the length of it. So, thank you, Zoran.
Yes. Thanks, Dana.
Bye-bye.
Nice talking to you.